So I just played this really aggressive game in the Evans Gambit that I'd like to show here. It starts with e4, of course. My opponent plays e5. I play knight f3. They go knight c6. I go for the Italian game. They play the Gioco piano. And then I play b4, the Evans Gambit. They accept the gambit. They take with the bishop. I play c3, ready to go d4. And then they go for probably the worst line in Evans, which is bishop c5. This means that d4 now comes with a tempo on the bishop. So they have to take the pawn that's attacking the bishop. And then I castle, setting up a trap if they want to be greedy. And then my opponent greedily takes on c3, allowing me to go bishop f7 check. Temporarily white's down 5 points of material, but I can play queen d5, hitting the king and the bishop, so I win my piece back on the next move, and now black can't castle, and I'm ahead in development. I'm about to take back one of the pawns too on c3. So my opponent brings the queen out to f6. I play e5, winning a tempo on the queen. They try to go for a queen trade. I decline and take the pawn back. So now I'm only down one pawn, but I have superior development, more open lines. His king can't castle, and my king is much safer, castled. My opponent plays h6, which I think is a bad choice in this opening. It's way too slow. He needed to develop. He needed to try to get his king out of the center, So I go bishop a3, hitting the queen. He moves the queen. I develop my other knight. And now I have full development. And black has 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces that haven't even moved yet. He hasn't moved either of his rooks. He hasn't moved one of his knights, and he hasn't moved one of his bishops. The engine evaluates this as already winning for white, even though I'm down material. So my opponent tries to catch up in development by going knight e7. But I immediately strike in the center with knight d4, hitting the queen. They have to trade. And then my opponent tries to bring the rook to the open f file that I kind of helped create. So I push f4, hoping to open the f file for me too. My opponent goes knight f5, attacking the queen. I move back, attacking c7. My opponent goes queen b6 check, just defending the pawn that I'm attacking. I go king h1, stepping out of the way of the check. My opponent moves the rook out of the way because my bishop was attacking it. And then I sack another pawn with e6 so that, if he takes with the queen, he just loses the queen because I have rook e1. So he has to take with the pawn. And then the d file opens. So now, the d file is mine to use. I go knight c4, attacking the queen, preparing to go knight e5. My opponent tries to go for a queen trade. I decline, of course, and I create a battery with the bishop and the queen. Now here I think I messed up because this battery I created allowed them to play c5 with tempo and kind of neutralize that diagonal. So I kind of just moved back and acknowledged my mistake. They play b6, trying to defend c5. And then I go knight e5, attacking the rook, just bringing my knight to a nice outpost, basically. They move the rook. I bring my rook on a1 to d1, attacking the queen, putting it on an open file. My opponent moves to e4, probably because they want to go bishop b7 in the future and create a battery towards my king. But it's too late because I have queen b5 check. And, well, there's two moves here. They can either block the check with one of their pieces and lose a piece, or they can go king f8 and allow knight g6 check and lose a rook. So my opponent decides to lose a piece. I take with the rook. They can't even take back, otherwise it's mate in 2. So my opponent decides to get out of the way of the discovered checks. And I go knight g6 check, forking the king and the rook. I take the rook. He takes back. I go for a queen trade because I'm now up material. They decline, and then I go f5, trying to open up another file towards the king. They go king e8, trying to step out of the file that's about to open, but I open it up anyway. Takes, and then here, there's just a knockout move. Rook d6, attacking the queen, but more importantly, opening up the diagonal, the light square diagonal towards his king, so I have queen b5 check on the next move. My opponent spends like a whole minute here and then plays queen e5, pretty much just hoping that they're not going to get destroyed. But queen b5 forces them to lose a knight. I take, and then mates incoming on d7. They couldn't stop it after they moved the queen. I thought this was a fun game because I managed to sacrifice like 5 pawns and then convert it into a winning attack. My opponent never even got to move the rook on a8. And meanwhile, my king's safe. All my heavy pieces, the rooks and the queens, they're slicing the king on the open files I created. And my opponent could just never get into the game. This was probably one of the most fun games I ever played.